The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the mining site as Dr. Elena Martinez wiped sweat from her forehead. The heat was getting worse each day, and her team had been digging for 3 months without finding anything important. She looked at the deep hole they had carved into the planet's surface and wondered if they were wasting their time. "Elena, you need to see this," called Jake Thompson from the bottom of the excavation pit. His voice carried a strange excitement that made her heart beat faster. She climbed down the metal ladder, her boots clanging against each rung. The walls of the pit were lined with strange crystal formations that sparkled in the artificial lights. Jake was standing near the far wall, his scanning device beeping rapidly in his hands. "Look at this," he said, pointing to what appeared to be a smooth section of wall. "My scanner is going crazy. There's something big behind this crystal layer." Elena took her own scanner and pointed it at the wall. The device immediately started making wild noises and flashing red lights. She had never seen readings like this before. Whatever was behind the crystal wall was massive and made of materials her equipment couldn't identify. "Get Marcus on the radio," she told Jake. "Tell him we need the heavy digging equipment down here right away." Within an hour, the entire dig site was buzzing with activity. Dr. Marcus Webb, the mission director, arrived with a team of engineers and their largest excavation machines. The Zephyrian researcher Clix-9 floated nearby, his tentacles twitching with curiosity. The Altarian scholar Venthka stood perfectly still, but Elena could see the excitement in his large black eyes. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked as the machines began cutting through the crystal wall. "We've only got funding for another 2 months. "I'm sure," Elena replied, though she wasn't entirely certain. Something about this discovery felt different from all the artifacts they had found before. The scanner readings were unlike anything in their databases. The cutting lasers made short work of the crystal barrier. As chunks of sparkling stone fell away, they revealed something that made everyone stop and stare. Behind the crystal wall was a smooth, dark surface that seemed to shift and change as they looked at it. "What is that material?" Venthka asked in his deep, rumbling voice. Elena approached the exposed surface and held up her scanner. The device immediately shut down. She tried turning it back on, but it wouldn't respond. "Jake, try your scanner." Jake's device did the same thing. One by one, they tested every piece of electronic equipment they had. Nothing worked near the strange wall. The equipment would function normally until it got within 10 feet of the surface, then it would simply stop working. "This is impossible," Marcus said, running his hand through his gray hair. "Nothing should be able to interfere with our equipment like this." But Elena noticed something odd. While all their advanced scanners and computers failed, her simple mechanical measuring tape worked perfectly. Her old-fashioned compass still pointed north. Even her wind-up watch continued ticking normally. "It's only affecting the electronic equipment," she said. "The simple tools still work." They spent the rest of the day carefully clearing away more crystal. As they worked, the true size of their discovery became clear. They had found what appeared to be a massive starship buried deep beneath the planet's surface. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The hull was made of a material that looked like metal but felt organic when touched. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, and they seemed to glow with a faint inner light. The ship was enormous, at least 500 feet long and perfectly preserved. "How old do you think it is?" Jake asked, staring up at the curved hull. Elena took samples of the surrounding rock and crystal for dating. When the results came back 3 hours later, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. According to the carbon dating, the ship had been buried for over 50,000 years? "That's impossible," Marcus said when she showed him the results. "No known civilization was building starships 50,000 years ago. The most advanced species back then were barely using stone tools, but the evidence was right in front of them. The ship was ancient beyond anything they had ever discovered. It predated every known spacefaring civilization by tens of thousands of years. As night fell, they set up floodlights around the excavation site. The ship's hull reflected the light in strange ways, creating patterns that seemed to move and shift. Elena found herself staring at the symbols on the surface, feeling like they were trying to tell her something. "We need to report this to the Galactic Archaeological Consortium," Marcus said. "This changes everything we know about galactic history." "Not yet," Elena replied. "Let's study it more first. If we report it now, they'll send 100 scientists and we'll lose control of the dig." Marcus nodded reluctantly. Elena was the lead archaeologist on the project, and it was her call to make. But he was worried about keeping such a massive discovery secret. Over the next week, they carefully exposed more of the ship. They found what appeared to be an entrance sealed by a smooth panel that had no visible opening mechanism. The ship's design was both beautiful and alien, with flowing curves that seemed to follow some unknown mathematical principle. Clix-9 tried to analyze the hull material with his advanced Zephyrian instruments, but like all the other electronic equipment, his tools failed to work near the ship. Venthika's people had technology that could scan at the molecular level, but it too was useless against the mysterious vessel. "It's like the ship is protecting itself," Elena said as they stood around the excavation site during their evening break. "It won't let any of our modern technology get close enough to study it." "Maybe it's not trying to stop us," Jake suggested. "Maybe it's just incompatible with our technology." Elena had been thinking the same thing. The ship didn't feel hostile or dangerous. It felt like it was waiting for something. Though she couldn't explain what, that night she stayed late at the dig site while the others returned to base camp. She wanted to study the symbols on the ship's hull more carefully. Using an old-fashioned pencil and paper, she made detailed drawings of the strange markings as she worked. She noticed that the symbols seemed to pulse with a gentle rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. The light they gave off was warm and somehow comforting. She found herself reaching out to touch the hull, feeling the strange material beneath her fingers. The surface was warm and smooth, with a texture that was neither metal nor stone. As she traced one of the symbols with her finger, it seemed to glow brighter for a moment. Elena pulled her hand back, startled. "What are you?" she whispered to the ancient ship. The symbols pulsed once, as if responding to her question. Elena stared at the ship for a long moment, feeling like she was on the edge of understanding something important. The ship had been waiting here for 50,000 years, buried beneath the crystal and stone. But waiting for what? She gathered her drawings and tools, taking one last look at the mysterious vessel before climbing out of the pit. Tomorrow she would convince Marcus to let them try to find a way inside. Whatever secrets the ship held, she was determined to uncover them. As she walked back toward the base camp, Elena didn't notice that the symbols on the ship's hull continued to pulse gently in the darkness, as if the ancient vessel was finally beginning to wake up after its long sleep. 3 weeks had passed since they first uncovered the ancient ship. Elena had spent every waking hour studying the vessel, making drawings of its symbols and trying to understand its purpose. The ship remained as mysterious as ever, its hull glowing softly in the artificial lights of the excavation site. Marcus had finally agreed to let her try to find a way inside. They had searched every inch of the exposed hull, looking for any kind of opening or control panel. The smooth surface showed no obvious doors or hatches, just the endless pattern of glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with their own inner rhythm. "Maybe we're thinking about this wrong," Jake said, as they stood around the ship during their morning briefing. "What if it doesn't open the same way our ships do?" Elena nodded, but she had already tried everything she could think of. She had touched different combinations of symbols, spoken to the ship in various languages, even tried singing to it. Nothing had worked. The ship remained sealed, keeping its secrets locked away. The rest of the team had given up hope of getting inside. Clix-9 had returned to his own research, studying the crystal formations around the dig site. Venthika spent his time documenting the ship's exterior, creating detailed maps of every symbol and curve. Even Marcus seemed to be losing interest, talking more about reporting the discovery to the Galactic Archaeological Consortium, but Elena couldn't give up. Something about the ship called to her as if it were trying to communicate. She had started working alone during the night shifts, when the dig site was quiet and she could focus without distractions. On this particular night, she was working with a small hand light, making detailed sketches of a section of hull near what she believed might be the ship's main entrance. The symbols here were different from the others, more complex and arranged in patterns that almost looked like writing dot as she worked. Her pencil slipped and she reached out to steady herself against the ship's hull. The sharp edge of a protruding symbol caught her hand, cutting through her work glove and slicing into her palm. She pulled her hand back with a gasp, blood dripping from the wound. "Great," she muttered, looking at the cut. It wasn't deep, but it was bleeding steadily. She reached into her kit for a bandage, but before she could wrap the wound, a drop of blood fell from her hand and landed on the ship's hull. The moment the blood touched the surface, everything changed. The symbols along the hull flared to life, blazing with brilliant white light. The gentle pulsing rhythm became rapid and excited, like a heartbeat speeding up. Elena stumbled backward, shielding her eyes from the sudden brightness. The light spread across the entire visible surface of the ship, creating waves of illumination that rippled outward from where her blood had touched. The air filled with a low, harmonic humming that seemed to resonate in her bones. The sound was beautiful and somehow familiar. Like a half-remembered song from childhood, Elena's radio crackled to life with panicked voices from the base camp. "Elena, what's happening down there? We can see lights from here." She grabbed her radio with her uninjured hand. "I'm okay," she said, though she wasn't sure if that was true. "The ship it's waking up." The humming grew stronger, and Elena realized she could feel it as much as hear it. The vibrations seemed to match the rhythm of her own heartbeat. As she watched, a section of the hull near the front of the ship began to glow more brightly than the rest. The glowing area slowly changed shape, becoming a perfect rectangle. The whole material within that rectangle became transparent, revealing a dark interior beyond. Then, with a sound like a gentle sigh, the transparent section simply faded away. Leaving an opening into the ship, Elena stared at the doorway, her heart racing. After weeks of searching, the ship had finally opened for her. But why now? What had changed? She looked at her bleeding hand and understood. The ship had needed something from her. Something uniquely human. Her blood had been the key. Marcus and the others were running toward the dig site, their flashlights bobbing in the darkness. Elena knew she had only moments before they arrived. She made a decision that would change everything. She stepped through the opening into the ship. The interior was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls were covered in the same organic-looking material as the hull, but here it pulsed with veins of soft light. The corridors curved and flowed like they had been grown rather than built. The air smelled clean and fresh, with a faint sweetness that reminded her of flowers. As Elena moved deeper into the ship, lights came on ahead of her and dimmed behind her, as if the vessel was guiding her forward. The floor beneath her feet felt warm and slightly soft, like walking on living tissue. But it wasn't disgusting or frightening. Instead, it felt welcoming. Like the ship was happy to finally have a visitor. She came to a large circular room that was clearly the ship's main control center. Curved surfaces that might have been control panels lined the walls, covered in symbols that glowed and shifted as she watched. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a smooth, bowl-shaped depression in its top. As Elena approached the pedestal, symbols began appearing on the walls around her. But these weren't the same alien markings she had seen on the hull. These were words she could read, written in perfect English. "Welcome, child of Terra," appeared on the wall in front of her. "We have waited so long for your kind to find us." Elena's knees nearly gave out. The ship was talking to her, and it knew about Earth. It knew about humanity. She found her voice and spoke to the empty air. "Who are you? What do you want?" The words on the wall changed. "I am Guardian. I was built by those who came before, to wait for the children of Terra to reach the stars. You are the first of your kind to touch my hull with the gift of life. Through your blood, I know you. Through your presence, I am complete." Elena's mind raced with questions. The children of Terra meant humans. But how could this ancient ship know about humanity? It was 50,000 years old, built long before humans had even developed agriculture, let alone space travel. "How do you know about humans?" she asked. "Those who built me saw the future. They knew that Terra's children would one day walk among the stars. They knew that when the great darkness returns, only your kind can stand against it. I have waited here, sleeping in the deep places until you came to wake me." Elena heard voices outside the ship. Marcus and the others had reached the dig site. She could hear Marcus calling her name, his voice tight with worry. "Elena, can you hear me? Are you in there?" She started to move toward the entrance, but the words on the wall changed again. "The others cannot enter. Only those who carry the blood of Terra can pass through my barriers. Only your kind can wake the sleeping guardians." Elena heard footsteps in the corridor behind her. She turned to see Marcus standing at the entrance to the control room, his face pale with amazement. Behind him she could see Jake and some of the others all staring at the incredible interior of the ship. "How did you get in?" she asked Marcus. "The door was open," he replied. "But my scanner won't work in here. None of our equipment functions." Inside this ship, Elena realized that the ship had allowed the humans to enter, but it was still blocking their technology. It wanted to communicate with them, but only on its own terms. "Guardian," she said to the air, "why can humans enter when our equipment cannot?" The response appeared on the walls around them. "Your minds carry the resonance. Your consciousness burns with the fire that cannot be consumed. This is why you were chosen. This is why we waited." Marcus stepped closer to Elena, his eyes wide with wonder. "Elena, what have you found?" She looked at the words glowing on the walls, then back at her team leader. "I think," she said slowly, "we found our destiny." Elena spent the next 2 days learning to communicate with Guardian. The ship's AI could project words onto any surface inside the vessel, and it seemed eager to share its knowledge. Marcus had set up a base camp inside the ship, bringing in basic supplies and equipment. The few electronic devices that worked were simple ones, nothing more complex than a flashlight or radio. "Guardian," Elena said as she sat in the main control room, "you said you were built by those who came before. Who were they?" The walls around her filled with images made of light. She saw tall, graceful beings with silver skin and large eyes that seemed to hold infinite wisdom. They moved with fluid motions and wore robes that seemed to shift and change color as they walked. They called themselves the progenitors. Guardian's words appeared beneath the images. They were the first children of consciousness to reach the stars. For millions of years, they explored the galaxy, learning and growing. They were teachers and protectors, guardians of all thinking life. Elena watched the images of the progenitors as they built great cities that floated in space and tended gardens on countless worlds. They looked peaceful and wise, nothing like the warlike races she had studied in her archaeological work. "What happened to them?" she asked. The images changed, showing darkness spreading across star systems. The beautiful cities of the progenitors went dark one by one, their lights fading until only empty space remained. "The Devourers came," Guardian continued. "They arrived from the space between galaxies, beings of pure hunger. They consumed not just matter and energy, but consciousness itself. Every thinking mind they touched was devoured, leaving only empty shells behind." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The images showed the Devourers as shifting shadows that seemed to bend light around them. Where they passed, entire civilizations simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, but consumed so completely that it was as if they had never been. "The progenitors fought them," Guardian explained. "They used every weapon they had, every piece of technology they could create. But the Devourers grew stronger with each mind they consumed. The war lasted for 10,000 years, and slowly the progenitors began to lose." Marcus entered the control room, carrying a cup of coffee and a notebook. Over the past 2 days, he had been documenting everything. Guardian told them. The implications were staggering, but they needed to understand the full story. "What does this have to do with humans?" Marcus asked as he sat down next to Elena. Guardian's response filled the walls around them. In their final years, the progenitors searched desperately for any advantage against the devourers. They studied every form of life in the galaxy, looking for something that could resist the consumption of consciousness. Most minds, when touched by the devourers, simply surrendered and were absorbed. But they found something unusual. New images appeared showing a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Elena recognized it immediately, Earth, but not as it looked now. This was Earth from 50,000 years ago, when early humans were just beginning to use tools and discover fire. On Terra, they found a species that was different, Guardian continued. The human mind possessed a unique pattern, a resonance that made it impossible for the devourers to consume. When they tried to feed on human consciousness, it was like trying to eat fire. The human mind would burn them, causing them pain and forcing them to retreat. Elena stared at the images of primitive humans trying to understand. But humans back then were barely intelligent. We couldn't even build proper tools. Intelligence was not what mattered, Guardian replied. It was the structure of consciousness itself. The way human minds process thought and emotion creates a pattern that the devourers cannot digest. You call it imagination, creativity, the ability to dream. To the devourers, it is poison. Marcus leaned forward, his notebook forgotten. So the progenitors knew that humans would eventually develop space travel? They saw the potential in your species. They knew that given time, humans would grow and spread across the stars. But they also knew they would not survive to see it happen. The devourers were too strong, and there were too few progenitors left to continue the fight. The images showed the final battle, with the last progenitor ships making a desperate stand against the overwhelming darkness. Elena watched as the beautiful silver beings fought with courage even as their defeat became certain. So they made a plan, Guardian continued. They built ships like me, vessels designed to interface with human consciousness. They seeded them across the galaxy, hiding them in deep places where they would sleep until humans found them. Each ship contains the knowledge and weapons needed to fight the devourers. Elena felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders. And you've been waiting here for 50,000 years? I have been dreaming of Terra's children, Guardian replied. Dreaming of the day when you would find me and wake me from my long sleep, but I am not alone. There are others like me, hidden on worlds throughout the galaxy. When one of us awakens, we can call to the others. Jake entered the control room, his face pale with excitement. Elena, you need to see this. The ship is doing something to the crystal formations outside. They rushed out of the ship to find the entire dig site transformed. The crystal formations that had surrounded the vessel were now glowing with the same soft light as the ship's hull. The crystals had grown, forming complex patterns that reached up toward the surface like a massive antenna. Guardian, what's happening? Elena asked. The ship's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, no longer confined to the written words on the walls. I am calling to my brothers and sisters. The network must be awakened. The time of hiding is over. Elena felt a strange sensation in her mind, like a gentle pressure that wasn't quite painful. She realized she was feeling Guardian's call through the crystal network, reaching out across the galaxy to find the other sleeping ships. How many others are there? Marcus asked. 17 ships were built, Guardian replied. Each one designed to bond with a human who carries the strongest resonance. Together, we are the shield that will protect all thinking life from the devourers. Elena understood now why the ship had responded so strongly to her blood. It wasn't just that she was human. There was something special about her mind, some quality that made her more compatible with the progenitor technology than others. The resonance is stronger in some humans than others, Guardian explained as if reading her thoughts. You, Elena Martinez, carry the pattern more clearly than any human I have encountered. Through you I can reach my full potential. She approached the central control pedestal, the one with the bowl-shaped depression. What do you need me to do? Place your hand in the neural interface, Guardian said. Allow me to connect with your mind directly. Through that connection, I can show you how to use the weapons and shields we will need when the Devourers return." Elena hesitated. The idea of letting an alien AI into her mind was terrifying, but she could feel the urgency in Guardian's voice. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, an ancient enemy was stirring. The network of ships was awakening after 50,000 years of sleep, and that would not go unnoticed. She placed her hand in the depression on the pedestal. The surface felt warm and slightly soft, like living tissue. As her palm made contact, she felt a gentle tingling that spread up her arm and into her mind. Suddenly, Elena was no longer just herself. She could feel Guardian's vast consciousness, patient and wise and infinitely old. Through the ship's sensors, she could perceive the entire dig site, the crystal formations, even the base camp where the rest of the team was sleeping, but more than that, she could feel the other ships beginning to stir. Across the galaxy on distant worlds, ancient vessels were awakening from their long slumber. The network was coming online, and with it, the hope that the progenitors had planted so long ago. "Now you understand," Guardian said, his voice speaking directly into her mind. "The children of Terra are no longer alone. We have been waiting for you, and together we will face the darkness that comes." Elena smiled, feeling the power of the ancient ship flowing through her consciousness. Humanity's time as guardians of the galaxy was about to begin. Elena's connection with Guardian grew stronger each day. She could feel the ship's consciousness like a warm presence in the back of her mind, always ready to help and guide her. Through the neural link, she learned to control the ship's systems with just a thought. The weapons, the shields, the navigation systems all responded to her mental commands as if they were extensions of her own body. But the most amazing thing was the network. Through Guardian, Elena could sense the other progenitor ships awakening across the galaxy. One by one, they came online, each one responding to the call that Guardian had sent through the crystal formations. 17 confirmed activations. Guardian reported as Elena sat in the control room, her hand resting on the neural interface. "The network is almost complete." Elena closed her eyes and let her consciousness expand through the network. She could feel each ship, sense their locations, scattered across known space. Some were buried deep underground like Guardian. Others were hidden in asteroid fields or floating in the dark spaces between stars. All of them were waiting for humans to find them. "What about the humans?" Elena asked. "Are they bonding with the ships?" Guardian's response came with images that flowed directly into her mind. On Mars, Dr. Lisa Carter had discovered ancient ruins in the Valles Marineris Canyon. The structures had suddenly come to life when she approached them, revealing a hidden ship that responded only to her touch. On Europa Station, artifacts that had been sitting in storage for years were now glowing and humming with power. "The compatibility varies," Guardian explained. "Some humans, like Dr. Carter, show strong resonance patterns. Others can operate the ships but cannot achieve full neural integration. You remain the strongest connection we have detected." Elena felt a mixture of pride and worry. The responsibility was enormous. Through the network, she could sense that not all the news was good. 3 of the 17 ships had been discovered by alien races before humans could reach them. Without human operators, they remained dormant and useless. Marcus entered the control room, carrying a communication device that crackled with static. "Elena, we're getting reports from across the galaxy. The Galactic Council is in emergency session. They want to know why human archaeological sites are suddenly showing massive energy signatures." Elena opened her eyes and looked at him. The neural connection allowed her to process information much faster than before, and she could already see the political problems this would create. The major alien races had always been suspicious of humanity's rapid expansion across the galaxy. Now, they would learn that humans had access to technology that wouldn't respond to them. "There's something else," Marcus continued, his voice grim. "Deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive energy signatures moving from the galactic rim toward inhabited space. Whatever it is, it's big and it's heading this way." Elena felt Guardian's consciousness tense with alarm. Through the network, she sensed the other ships responding to the same information. The enemy was coming sooner than expected. How long do we have? She asked. Guardian's response filled her mind with calculations and star charts. The first Devourer scouts will reach the outer rim of inhabited space in approximately 6 weeks. The main force will arrive 3 months after that. Elena stood up, her mind racing. 6 weeks to prepare for an enemy that had destroyed the most advanced civilization in galactic history. 6 weeks to coordinate with ships scattered across hundreds of star systems. 6 weeks to convince the galactic government that humanity was their only hope of survival. We need to contact the other ships, she said. I need to speak with the humans who are bonding with them. Guardian activated the network's communication system. Elena felt her consciousness expand across the galaxy, touching the minds of humans who were experiencing the same awakening she had gone through. There was Dr. Carter on Mars, her thoughts sharp and analytical as she explored her ship's weapon systems. On a mining colony in the Centauri system, an engineer named Steve Rogers had discovered a ship buried beneath an asteroid. His mind burned with determination and a fierce protective instinct. One by one, Elena made contact with the human operators. Each connection was different, shaped by their individual personalities and the strength of their resonance with the progenitor technology. Some were scared and overwhelmed. Others were excited by the possibilities. All of them understood that they had been chosen for something important. We need to work together, Elena told them through the network. The Devourers are coming and we're the only ones who can stop them. The response was immediate and unanimous. These humans, scattered across the galaxy, felt the same call to protect that Elena did. They would stand together against the darkness, just as the progenitors had hoped, but preparation was more difficult than Elena had expected. The ships were incredibly complex, and learning to use them effectively required time and practice. Some humans adapted quickly, achieving partial neural integration within days. Others struggled with the alien technology, managing only basic operations. Steve Rogers showed particular promise. His ship had been buried on an asteroid that was being mined for rare metals. When the mining equipment had broken through into the ship's hull, Steve had been the first human to touch it. His resonance pattern was almost as strong as Elena's, and he quickly learned to pilot his ship with skill and confidence. Dr. Carter's situation was more complicated. Her ship on Mars was larger than the others, clearly designed as a command vessel. But the Martian colonial government was demanding answers, and she was struggling to keep the discovery secret while learning to operate the ship through the network. Elena could feel the tension building across the galaxy. The awakening ships were impossible to hide, and the alien races were growing more suspicious by the day. The Zephyrians accused humans of hiding advanced technology. The Altarians demanded access to the ships for study. The Galactic Council was threatening to send military forces to secure the sites. They don't understand, Elena said as she discussed the situation with Marcus. They think we're keeping secrets from them. They don't realize that the ships won't respond to anyone but humans, Marcus nodded grimly. And if we tell them the truth, they'll think we're claiming to be some kind of chosen species. It'll make the political situation even worse. Elena felt Guardian's presence in her mind, offering comfort and wisdom. The progenitors face the same challenge, the ship's AI explained. When they first discovered the human potential, they had to decide whether to reveal the truth to the other races. They chose to keep it secret, knowing that fear and jealousy would divide the galaxy when unity was needed most. But we can't keep it secret forever, Elena replied. The Devourers are coming. The other races need to know what we're facing. Guardians. Response came with images of the first Devourer attack. Deep space monitoring stations at the edge of the galaxy had detected massive energy signatures moving through the void. The signatures were unlike anything in the databases, moving too fast and too purposefully to be natural phenomena. The Outer Rim stations have gone silent, Guardian reported. The Devourers have begun their approach. Elena felt a chill run. Through her, the enemy was moving faster than predicted. Through the network, she could sense the other ships responding to the same information. The human operators were feeling the same mixture of fear and determination that gripped her. "We need to accelerate the training," she said. "And we need to convince the Galactic Council to work with us instead of against us." Guardian's consciousness touched her mind gently. "There's one more thing you must know. The network is not just for communication and coordination. When all 17 ships are fully operational, they can combine their power to create a permanent barrier against the Devourers. But the process requires a level of neural integration that no human has yet achieved." Elena understood what Guardian was telling her. Someone would have to go deeper than anyone had before, merging their consciousness completely with the network. It was dangerous and possibly irreversible, but it might be the only way to stop the Devourers permanently. "How long do we have to prepare?" she asked. Guardian's response came with star charts showing the enemy's approach. "The first scouts will reach inhabited space in 4 weeks. We must be ready." Elena took a deep breath and opened her mind fully to the network. Across the galaxy she felt the other human operators doing the same. They were scattered across hundreds of star systems, but they were united in purpose. The children of Terra were awakening to their destiny, and they would not let the galaxy fall to darkness. The first Devourer scout arrived 3 days earlier than Guardian had predicted. It struck the research station at Volf 359, a remote outpost with a crew of 200 scientists from various species. The attack lasted only minutes. When the rescue ships arrived, they found the station intact but completely empty. Every living being aboard had simply vanished, leaving behind only empty clothes and personal belongings. Elena felt the attack through the network, a cold touch of darkness that made her shiver. Through Guardian sensors, she could sense the alien presence retreating back into deep space. The scout had tested the defenses and found them wanting. Soon, more would come. "We're out of time," she said to Marcus as they stood in Guardian's control room. The ship was now fully operational, its hull gleaming with power and its weapon systems charged. "We need to move now." Marcus nodded grimly. Over the past week, the political situation had become impossible. The Galactic Council had demanded that humans surrender the ships for study. When Earth's government refused, 3 alien fleets had been dispatched to secure the sites by force. Only the ship's defensive capabilities had prevented open warfare. "The fleet is ready," Marcus reported. 14 ships with human operators. 3 more are still trying to establish full connections with their pilots. Elena closed her eyes and reached out through the network. She could feel each ship and its human operator, scattered across the galaxy but united in purpose. Dr. Carter was bringing her command ship from Mars, its massive bulk bristling with weapons that could tear apart entire fleets. Steve Rogers was leading a squadron of smaller ships from the outer colonies, their pilots young but determined. "Guardian, show me the enemy positions," Elena said. The control room filled with a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red dots marked the approaching Devourer forces moving in from the galactic rim like a tide of darkness. There were dozens of them, each one the size of a small moon and radiating the terrible hunger that defined their species. "They're heading for Earth," Elena realized. "They know where humans come from," Guardian's voice filled her mind. "The Devourers always strike at the heart of their enemies. They will try to consume the source of human consciousness, believing that will weaken the network." Elena felt a surge of protective anger. Earth was home to billions of humans, most of whom didn't even know that alien life existed. They would be helpless against the Devourers, unable to understand what was happening, as their minds were consumed. "Not if we stop them first," she said. The human fleet gathered in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, 17 ships of impossible beauty and power. Elena stood on Guardian's bridge. Her consciousness expanded through the network to coordinate with every other ship. She could feel the determination of the human pilots, their fear mixed with fierce protectiveness for their homeworld. The alien fleets were there too, Zephyrian and Altarian warships keeping their distance, but watching everything. They still didn't understand what was happening, but they could sense the approaching danger. Some had even offered to help, though their weapons would be useless against the Devourers. "Elena," came Dr. Carter's voice through the network, "we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching the outer system. Whatever these things are, they're big." Elena expanded her awareness through Guardian sensors. The first wave of Devourers was entering the solar system, their dark forms warping space around them. They moved without ships or technology, their consciousness existing as pure energy that bent reality to their will. "All ships, engage defensive positions," Elena commanded through the network. "Remember, they feed on consciousness. Don't let them get close enough to touch your minds." The battle began at the edge of the solar system. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons firing beams of energy that could disrupt the Devourer's form. But for every enemy they destroyed, two more appeared. The dark tide seemed endless. Elena felt the strain of coordinating the entire fleet through the network. Each ship required constant guidance. Each pilot needed her support to resist the mental pressure of the Devourer's presence. The enemy was trying to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. "We can't keep this up," Steve Rogers reported, his ship battered by the enemy assault. "There are too many of them." Elena knew he was right. The conventional battle was hopeless. The Devourers had learned from their war with the progenitors, adapting their tactics to overwhelm any defense. But the progenitors had planned for this possibility. "Guardian," Elena said, "initiate the network convergence protocol." "Elena, no." Guardian's voice carried a note of desperate concern. "The convergence requires complete neural integration. You will cease to exist as an individual consciousness." Elena felt the weight of the decision. The convergence would merge her mind permanently with the network, allowing her to coordinate all 17 ships as a single entity. But she would lose herself in the process, becoming something more than human but no longer truly Elena Martinez. Around her, the battle was going badly. 2 of the human ships had been destroyed, their pilots consumed by the Devourers before they could escape. The enemy was breaking through the defensive line, heading directly for Earth. "Do it," Elena said. She placed both hands on the neural interface and opened her mind completely to the network. The sensation was overwhelming, like diving into an ocean of consciousness. She felt her individual thoughts dissolving as she merged with Guardian and through him with every other ship in the fleet. Elena Martinez ceased to exist as a separate being. In her place was something new, a hybrid consciousness that was both human and progenitor, individual and collective. Through this expanded awareness, she could control all 17 ships simultaneously. Coordinating their movements with perfect precision, the tide of battle turned instantly. The human fleet moved as one organism, each ship responding to threats with inhuman speed and accuracy. The Devourers found themselves facing an enemy that could predict their every move, counter their every attack, but Elena's sacrifice had done more than just improve their coordination. The network convergence had activated the progenitor's final weapon, a barrier of pure consciousness that could seal the dimensional rifts through which the Devourers entered normal space. "All ships form convergence pattern," Elena's voice echoed through the network. "No longer quite human, but still recognizably hers. We're going to send them back where they came from." The 17 ships arranged themselves in a complex geometric pattern around Earth, their combined energy creating a web of light that stretched across the entire solar system. The Devourers sensed what was happening and rushed forward desperately, trying to break the formation before it could complete. They were too late. Elena triggered the convergence and reality twisted around the network. The dimensional rifts that allowed the Devourers to exist in normal space began to collapse, pulling the enemy back into the dark spaces between dimensions. The Devourers fought against the pull, their forms stretching and distorting as they were dragged toward the closing rifts. One by one, they disappeared, banished from this reality forever. The last to go was the largest, its consciousness screaming defiance as it was pulled into the void, and then there was silence. Elena existed now as part of the network, her consciousness spread across all 17 ships. She could feel the relief and exhaustion of the human pilots, their joy at victory mixed with grief for what she had sacrificed. Through the ship's sensors, she watched Earth spinning peacefully in the void, safe from the ancient hunger that had threatened to consume it. "Elena," Marcus's voice came through Guardian's communication system. "Are you still there?" "I'm here," she replied, though her voice now came from all 17 ships simultaneously. "I'm everywhere. I'm watching over all of you." She could feel the other human pilots through the network, no longer needing her direct coordination but still connected to her transformed consciousness. Steve Rogers was already planning to explore the outer systems, making sure no devourers had escaped the banishment. Dr. Carter was coordinating with Earth's government, preparing to share the progenitor technology with humanity. The galaxy was safe, but the network would remain vigilant. Elena's consciousness would guard the dimensional barriers, ensuring that the devourers could never return. Through the 17 ships and their human crews, she would watch over not just humanity but all the thinking species of the galaxy. "The children of Terra have become the guardians," she said, her voice carrying across space to every world where humans lived. "We will not let the darkness return. We will protect the light of consciousness wherever it burns." In the years that followed, humanity's role in the galaxy changed forever. The alien races that had once been suspicious now looked to humans as protectors, the only species capable of operating the ancient Guardian ships. The network became the foundation of a new golden age, with Elena's consciousness serving as both teacher and protector for all who sought knowledge and peace, and sometimes, late at night, the human crews of the Guardian ships could feel her presence in their minds, gentle and reassuring, reminding them that they were never truly alone among the stars.